everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Conversation Station. This episode, we're going to be doing a quick review on the Thunderbolts movie. This movie is the newest installment of the MCU, and it sets up for the next movie as well as the Fantastic Four. It just seems extremely exciting, and it was action-packed from the beginning to the end. The best compliment I can give this movie is Marvel seems to be taking itself a little bit more seriously. I don't think they undercutted as many scenes with jokes and felt like they had to leave on that comedic undertone every single time. They let some dramatic moments just be as dramatic as they needed to be. We also didn't get delve too much into the backstories of how everybody came together, because we obviously had Wyatt Russell as John Walker returning, we had Ghost returning, we have obviously Yelena Florence Pugh returning as Black Widow after the loss of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, and just her still reeling from that and dealing with the effects of that and simply trying to become her own thing and looking for her place in the in the world, and just as well as her place in like the superhero world that she lives in, and fighting and being an assassin. And they all start as kind of this ragtag team of assassins for Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, the character played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she does a fantastic villainous job. She does some really iconic lines in that movie, but I think the most iconic one is when she tells her assistant that there's bad guys and then there's worse guys. Just to kind of say that there's not really good guys or bad guys, just bad guys and worse guys. I thought that was a really cool scene, and I thought it just kind of highlighted how things can get a little murky sometimes, and with her creation of the Sentry hero, it was definitely a little confusing. And if you've seen the movie, Sentry was definitely a confused hero, made from a person that was had an extremely rough and traumatic background. They made this person, and he wasn't even supposed to survive. They were going to incinerate him along with everybody else. Lewis Pullman did a fantastic job as Sentry. That split, that duality, he did a really great job at just portraying that emotion and the sadness that of the void, and as well as the scariness of it, was really put forward. And it was really awesome to see how they're going to use Sentry in future films. Is literally just, I'm really excited to see. It's really just up for grabs, because by the end of it, he's obviously really scared to use his powers, because his powers come with a darker half, and so he doesn't want that to get out. A big part of this movie is the family, or just coming together. Having people with you is a big message through this movie. A lot of the beginning of the movie has to deal with Yelena just having a trouble with coping, as I said, and just struggling with her place in the world. And a lot of that feeds into what Sentry is going through, what his character is feeling. And she at first kind of feeds into that negativity side of it, of like, yeah, we are all alone. You can't trust anybody. You can't even trust me. And as she becomes more a part of this team and becomes a little bit more proud of herself and wanting to be a hero, I think it's wanting to follow in the footsteps of her sister. And with just how much we got David Harbour back as the Red Guardian, he was a real big piece in pushing her to be better and to try to be happy, even though she really didn't understand why she was feeling as bad as she was. But I think it's just all the mistakes she's made. She doesn't see how she could go forward and see herself as a hero. But I think, as her dad says, it's just a matter of trying and doing the best you can. It's not the past is the past. You kind of just got to leave it there, and what you do going forward is really what matters. And so it's as long as you try. And that's a big part of the message of the movie. But even those dramatic scenes don't slow down the pace of the movie. It doesn't go too far into each character's little backstory. We get little pieces of everyone. I think Ghost is really the only person that we don't dive in at all. Taskmaster obviously is taken out immediately, so she's obviously an expendable character in that, at least in this dynamic, and she just kind of gets cut off immediately. So that really kind of sucked, but at the same time as expected. As they said, there was going to be a death really quick, and we just couldn't see it being anybody else. I see a lot of people saying that it was going to be Taskmaster, so honestly that was kind of a good call, just because, like I said, it seemed obvious. We got our first look at Congressman Bucky, which is, Congressman Barnes, him trying to do things the right way rather than punching through every problem. and that's obviously extremely annoying. It's, obviously he's got to get out in the field and do some crazy stuff, and when he finally goes out to get the Thunderbolts, it's really fucking epic. Whoever did his hair in this entire movie, as well as that end credit scene, like, man, that person needs a raise. Like, they need 10 raises because his hair looked amazing. It just looked really cool. It was really awesome, especially in that end credit scene. I was just like, smacking my girlfriend on the arm, like, dang, like they really like went crazy with the hairdo. Like, it's just, they tried to get it like really perfect. It would just looked really crazy. But I think that was, the little character details like that. Red Guardian's suit looked really awesome. I especially love the scene where, he got to save the little girl. It was really awesome just to see him have that moment and, tell the little girl you're safe, even though she ends up getting, blacked out by the void right away. And, you get that sinking feeling of like, man, he almost had it. And luckily we get, once we're, they're able to bring everybody back. I'm glad that Guardian has that second where he's able to turn around and see that little girl's back. And you can kind of just see like oh, thank God, like, oh, she's back. And so I'm kind of glad they, added that in there. That was a little cool scene. And him just being a hero, him seeing those, the rocks falling on people and just grabbing the debris and just trying to shield everybody, just being the hero that he always is. And, always trying to say like, oh, I'm a super soldier too, just like you. And how he, he really holds himself to that standard of being a hero like Captain America and like, like the Winter Soldier, and how excited he gets when he sees Bucky. It's just really cool. I think David Harbour is a really, really great addition to the Avengers, and I can't wait to see how much more they use him. I hope we get way more scenes with him, way more fighting, and I hope we get to see way cooler showcases of his powers. I think all of them in this movie had the ability to showcase their abilities, and like enough time as well. Like, there was a lot of fighting for every single character, and I think that was really cool, and it kept the movie, like I said, fast-paced. Nothing felt slow. Nothing felt like it was just kind of dragging along. It definitely was an extremely fast-paced, action-filled movie. Allegra de Fontaine bought the Avengers Tower, and at the end we see that it is the home of the new Avengers, because as she is the master of spin, and she spun the terrible story of her creating Sentry as well as creating the Void, the problem of the Void, which is blacking out the entire New York City, basically. And yeah, so whether or not that's going to be addressed in any of the other Marvel shows, that's definitely going to be interesting to see, because how can you black out an entire city and not have anybody say anything about it? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see in the future how that's talked about and in what, regards. Obviously now we have the new Avengers, and we have at the end they talk about how Sam Wilson is trying to also establish the Avengers. We also see Red Guardian come out in like a suit and say, "Oh, I've found the solution to the Avengers problem," and he has the Avengers with a Z. A lot of people think that could be queuing up for She-Hulk, the attorney, to pop into the Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point. And honestly, that's either him or her, or Matt Murdock obviously would be the two people who would show up to fight that case or deal with that case. Not that I think that they're actually going to go to trial or anything or sue each other for the Avengers thing, but I think that would be an interesting way for them to kind of insert them in. Another thing they talk about in that little end credit scene is the fact that there's a multiversal ship entering their atmosphere. Now, this was a huge deal in the theater. People were very excited, and when we saw the ship finally turn around, it is revealed that it is the Fantastic Four ship. Now, a lot of people are saying that they're kind of bummed out because that ruins the Fantastic Four movie, but they already showed us in the trailer that world is going to get destroyed. So whether or not this is, how they're going to explain why Reed's coming to this world, or how exactly he landed on this specific world, that's going to be the explanation. Also, as I said before, is Reed Richards always comes with a kind of a dark cloud over him. He always has something that's, kind of always bugging him, and, that thing he couldn't save, or, he always has this reason why he's always working and tinkering, and why he's the smartest man in the universe who never stops, because he feels bad about something. In the original Fantastic Four, they kind of made his mission be like he wants to return his family to normal. So that was kind of his like dark cloud he had, and they all kind of like got on him for it. And Ben specifically wanted to be normal again. So that was kind of like the the eating thing that he had that kept him working, that made him want to be better and keep everybody safe. And in the second movie, they kind of move on from that, and he's just trying to keep the world safe. But I think, like I said, this is going to be this Reed Richards kind of, the pit in his stomach, the reason he keeps working, and, the thing that haunts him a little bit. So it was definitely exciting, and for me, it didn't really ruin anything for the Fantastic Four movie. I am just as excited to see. I still have a million questions as to why and how, as you know, other than the ones that are obviously answered in the trailer and with the with the obvious that we just kind of know, but the stuff that we don't in the fill-ins, and just to be able to showcase the Fantastic Four's powers is still going to be extremely exciting. But it was still really cool. I had no idea what to expect with the end credit scene of who was going to be there. So I think it's just really cool that they get in the universe quickly, and that just tells me also that, again, the pacing of everything, they are trying to fast pace everything. We're not going as slow as we did with other movies and other cutscenes. They're just trying to get to this so we can get to Secret Wars and Doomsday and everything else. And I think they're going to set up something big as, I mean, I hate to say it, but as big as Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, I really haven't been excited for the MCU in a long time like this, and this is, going to be a really fun ride. And I hope we all get to see some of the characters we love again, and I hope we get to see more of these characters for sure. There are new Avengers, and I hope they stay our new Avengers. I hope we get to see all of them. Florence Pugh did such an amazing job, like being the head of this movie. I just really hope we see her so much more. She really kicked ass in this movie, and I honestly just seeing more of that is really freaking cool. And David Harbour as well. Wyatt Russell was freaking amazing. Him coming back was just really cool. And again, they had that like dark story for him where he had an issue with his wife and his kid, and that wasn't really touched on. Just touched on in the way that Sentry. We got to see that flashback through Sentry, and then they make obviously a few remarks about it, just kind of to put him down, kind of put him in his place because he is this egotistical a-hole. And but it's really cool that that's the way that they address the whole like backstory thing. They just don't. They didn't do it too much. They kept the pacing of this movie really good, did a really great job with keeping it serious and keeping it action-packed. And I think as long as they do that with the rest of the movies, we're in for a really fun ride. If you haven't gotten to see this movie yet, I apologize for anything I've spoiled, but I'm sure everybody's seen this movie by now who wants to see it. I appreciate any time you spend watching the movie. Thank you, and I hope to see you again.